Andrew, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kira. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm Andrew Campbell-Eady. I'm the Head of Communications and Events at the Irish Centre for Diversity. We recently held the National Diversity and Inclusion Awards 2026 to recognise and celebrate the valuable work being done to progress diversity and inclusion in Ireland. This webinar series has been devised to share the insights and experiences from the sponsor, the winner and finalists, so that any learnings can be applied to your organisation or to help with the next award cycle. Today's session focuses on the category Employee of the Year, and this award was kindly sponsored and very fittingly by Publicjobs. Publicjobs is the centralised provider of recruitment, assessment and selection services across the civil and public services in Ireland. This is their fourth time as sponsors of the National Diversity Inclusion Awards and the first time as sponsors of this category, having previously sponsored the Public Sector Organisation of the Year Award category for 6 consecutive years. Thank you very much for your support of the awards. Your support makes the awards possible, so thank you for the team there. Before we start, Publicjobs, like the other sponsors in the Irish Centre for Diversity, had no part in the judging process and couldn't enter themselves. So we're all sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to hear the stories being shared. I'll shortly hand over to the award sponsor, and then we'll hear from some of the finalists and end with the award winner, wrapping up in about an hour. Everyone is muted except the panel. Automatic closed captions are available on the Teams controls, and instructions are being put into the chat function for those that need it. The session is being recorded and will shortly be available on the Irish Centre for Diversity website, which is irishcentreforddiversity.ie, or more simply, icfd.ie. Please share any comments in the chat function. We'd love to hear which organisations you're joining us from. There isn't time for Q&As today, but you may get answers to any questions you may have by reaching out to any of the panelists through LinkedIn or other social networks. So I'm pleased to introduce our host for today, Mark Whelan, who's ED&I partner at Publicjobs, and he's joined by Dara McGrath, who's Head of Governance and Quality at Publicjobs. Dara will shine a light on Publicjobs' diversity inclusion advances, with a particular focus on supporting employees and recruitment policies, and he'll then hand over to Mark to lead what is sure to be an insight-packed conversation. Welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. So much to me, I think. So hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. As Andrew said, my name is Dara McGrath, and I'm the Head of Governance and Quality in Publicjobs. For those of you who don't know, Publicjobs is the centralised provider of recruitment and selection services for the civil and public service in Ireland. So a lot of you may be familiar with our publicjobs.ie website. And what we do is we support the Irish government and our clients to deliver high quality public services through the recruitment of a diverse, highly talented and committed workforce that reflects the diversity of the society that it serves. So our organisation in various incarnations have actually been in existence for over 100 years. So initially a centralised recruitment body for the civil and public service in Ireland was founded around about the time of the foundation of the state. So sort of since then, we've been in existence with various different names and identities over the years. And I suppose during that time, the past century or so, we've built a really strong reputation for upholding the principles of independent and merit-based appointment. And also we are regulated by the Commission for Public Service Appointments, or the CPSA as they're known as for short. And the CPSA have a code of practice and guiding principles which we in Publicjobs would follow in terms of how we recruit. So our clients include all major government departments, so all 18 government departments, the likes of the Department of Finance, the Department of Health, the Department of Justice, Home Affairs and Migration, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And then our clients would also include state agencies, local authorities, so it could be city councils, county councils, and also public sector bodies, including An Garda Síochána, the HSE and the likes of Revenue. And also we additionally deliver an effective gateway to identify suitable candidates for consideration by ministers for appointment to state boards. So we also look after, I suppose, the state board's appointments process also. So our mission as an organisation in public jobs is recruiting a diversity of people for the public service with the talent, character and commitment to deliver for Ireland. And our work is guided by our recruitment purpose strategy, which we launched just last year. So in our recruit or purpose strategy, we have three main strategic priorities. And excuse me. So those are the first one is to be the public service recruitment centre. So I suppose what we mean by that is that we want to be the gold standard for public service recruitment in Ireland through, I suppose, demonstrating recruitment best practice, but also the likes of, I suppose, innovation in terms of how we recruit. The second strategic priority is to be the first choice for clients. So what that's about, it's about recruiting really good talent for the civil and public service and for our clients, and supporting the delivery of the programme for government of the day. And then our third strategic priority is to be where job seekers begin their search. So what that's about is to be, I suppose, the destination of choice for job seekers in terms of driving talent attraction for careers and roles in the civil and public service through, I suppose, our strong brand presence, and also, I suppose, showcasing our compelling employer value proposition through things like, I suppose, the purposeful work that there is on offer in the civil and public service. And also, I suppose, diversity is one of our, I suppose, key selling points as well in terms of our work environment. So we do in public jobs also have an ED&I strategy, and my colleague Mark, who'll be speaking shortly, is part of our ED&I team in public jobs who'd be involved in, I suppose, implementing and delivering on that strategy. And I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, diversity is part of our mission in public jobs. And ED&I is also going to be focused for us in terms of, I suppose, in terms of particularly removing barriers, when it comes to opportunities in the civil and public service, and also, I suppose, just influencing and driving systemic change across the system. So we do support and manage a lot of, I suppose, really important ED&I projects and initiatives. And to be honest, there's probably too many of them to mention at today's session, but I might just point to one or two in particular. So as I mentioned, like one of the key things that we do is that we, I suppose, we try and enable more diverse talent pathways and entry routes into the civil and public service. So we've got lots of different examples of various different programs that we run and support in terms of how we do that. So those programs include the WAM program, which is the Willing Able Mentoring program, that we run in conjunction with a head, and that's particularly focused on graduates with a disability. Then we also have the OWL program, which is the Oireachtas Work Learning program, and again, that's a supported work placement for candidates with an intellectual disability. And then finally, other programs that we could point to include the likes of the Traveller and Roma Work Placement program also. And then another thing I suppose that we do is that we create or try to create, I suppose, a broader and more diverse talent pool for roles in the civil and public service. So that's through things like initiatives like maybe our approach to reasonable accommodations when it comes to the recruitment process, and also things like we try and sort of lead on systemic changes across the civil and public service. So an example of something around that in recent years might be there was a change to the citizenship requirements in terms of the eligibility for roles in the civil and public service, and that is something that we in public jobs led on in particular. So I suppose just then moving on to the award. So as Andrew mentioned, we've been sponsoring the National and Diversity and Inclusion Awards in public jobs for a number of years. We were initially sponsoring the Public Sector Organisation of the Year category, and we did that for a couple of years. And I suppose this year then we decided to switch and to sponsor the Employee of the Year category. And I suppose the reason for that was we felt, I suppose, it was an opportunity for us to show our support for individuals in particular who are leading and driving ED&I progress in their workplaces. And just to say congratulations again to Sarah from South East Technological University, who won this year's award only in the last couple of weeks, and was presented with it by our CEO here in Public Jobs, Paul Geraghty. So as Andrew mentioned, we don't have any role in the judging process in public jobs. We just simply sponsor the category, but nonetheless, we are always really, I suppose, encouraged by the quality of the entries that we hear about, and the work of all the winners as well, in terms of all, I suppose, the great work being done around ED&I in so many different workplaces across Ireland. So I think that's really it from my standpoint. Thank you all very much for listening, and I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Mark Whelan, who's going to lead a Q&A from a public job standpoint. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Dara, for that great introduction. So as Dara said, I'm Mark Whelan. I work as Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Partner with Publicjobs. I'm really delighted to be here today, really pleased to be here, and just really looking forward to hearing from all the finalists. With that, I think we should just get straight into the questioning. And delighted to welcome our first finalist today, who's Sharon Rothwell from Bidvest Noonan. So welcome, Sharon. Hi, how are you? Thanks for coming along today.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and it's a delight to be here today. So my name's Sharon Rothwell. I'm a people business partner at Bidvest Noonan. I joined the business 18 months ago after 25 years as an operational HR business partner to work more on supporting our transport and logistics teams, but also working along our ED&I council.
That's great. So the judges noticed the judges admired that you led with personal honesty when you spoke about menopause at work. So what did that moment, speaking about menopause, change, not just for others, but for how you see leadership, Sharon?
Absolutely. I can take you on the full journey that started with one conversation. So when I joined the business, I was having a conversation with our head of communication, and she was talking to me about menopause and how she was struggling within the workplace. And I told her that I'd recently, in 2024, became a menopause wellness coach. And so we had a really open and honest conversation around perimenopause and menopause and how that affects women in the workplace. And through that conversation, she really embedded in me how we need to support our people within the business. So we had our conversation, and I said I can take her through all the different bits and pieces that I'd learned through my diploma. But she said, let's have a conversation within the business. And I said, okay. So we had a company-wide conversation with over 250 colleagues on the call, including our ex-co members as well. And throughout that conversation, I shared my personal journey as to why menopause is so important to me. 12 years ago, I went through a surgical hysterectomy. And back in those days, there was no menopause support whatsoever for women going through that. There was no talk around HRT and the effects that can have on your body. There was no talk around if they take your ovaries, you go straight into the menopause. Menopause wasn't a thing that was discussed. It was a taboo conversation. So I didn't get the support I needed. And through previous businesses, I've been trying to talk about menopause there. When I joined Bidvest Noonan and had this conversation with our head of comms and engagement, we felt that it'd be really important if we could put this on the agenda of Exco and out to our colleagues. So in my own time after work, I went away and created a programme called Together Through Menopause. Together Through Menopause is a 12-month programme. And each month we come together. I think we now have around 75 members within our group, and we talk about a different topic every month. We set the precedent where we said, this is our safe space. It's only for women. I have done a men's session as well for men and leaders of our business, but this is for women who can come and learn, understand, get their frustrations off their chest around menopause and how it's such a stigma within the workplace. You know, when ladies are going through a hot flush, they need a fan on the desk, they need to sit by a window. You know, if they have brain fog in a meeting, how do they get through that without looking stupid, like they're forgetting what they're doing there? I gave an example in the recording that we did with the business that I was doing a presentation that I'd done many, many times before in a previous business with around 50 people in the room. I had my slides, the PowerPoint presentation was on, I was talking away, and all of a sudden I got brain fog. And I just completely stopped the conversation. I said, I'm so sorry, I've lost my flow. And one of the guys in the room made a comment to say, oh, is it the time of the month? And that really, really affected me. And that made me think, I need to do something about menopause in the workplace. So through the creation of Together Through Menopause, each month we have 70 odd women that come together, talk about a different topic every month. Then it's become a social, really. At the end of the 12 months, which was Christmas, we got together and had like a Christmas meeting and we celebrated women in the workplace. We've now launched it again into season 2, and we're in the second session on Friday. But as part of that as well, I've also created a men's group as well called Mankind Matters, and this now focuses on men's health as well. So not only have we got a program on menopause, we've also got a program for men's health, and that's again created by me but led by one of our directors within the business. So it's got a man's face at the forefront, but it's all about well-being for me within the workplace, and it's just growing. So from your question, honestly, it changed me more than anything. I used to think that leadership was about being solid, composed, and delivering results. And now I realise that leadership isn't about protecting an image. It's about creating spaces where everybody can come to work, get the support they need to be their true selves at work. And the impact it's had has been huge. It's not only talked about within Bidvest Noonan. I've also spoken to our customers about this, so it's out there in the domain. I share our details with different customers as well, and I'm cross-referencing with other ED&I leaders within other businesses to talk about the impact that this menopause course has had within the workplace.
Not just impacting within the workplace, it's leadership and also
Absolutely.
partner organisations and things like that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, great. You mentioned that the menopause wellness coach at the start there. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Is that the course?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I like I say, my menopause journey started 12 years ago, and thankfully I've just come out the other side of that, which is brilliant. I can talk all the way through the journey. But I wanted to get an accreditation where I could talk to ladies and have the knowledge through the Centres of Excellence. So I did a diploma through there, and I did that on menopause support, but then I became a menopause wellness coach. So I can sit with ladies now and talk to them about their symptoms. So if they're struggling with certain kinds of issues that they have, I can talk to them about HRT, I can talk to them about exercise, diet, and all the different things that will help them through their menopause journey.
Thanks very much for that, Sharon. That was really interesting. Great. So next, I'd like to welcome Mitchell Okeke, who's with us today from Medtronic. Welcome, Mitchell.
Sorry, guys. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Mitchell Okeke. I work for quality assurance. I'm a quality assurance specialist for the post-market team for Medtronic Ireland, and I'm also the partnership lead for ADN UK and Ireland. It's an employee resource group within Medtronic. And I've been part of the executive teams for about 3 years now, and I'm glad to be here this morning.
Thanks very much, Mitchell. So the judges commented that you've made a big impact through the African Descent Network and the community outreach, even without a formal diversity and inclusion title. So what's helped you build influence and get people to join you in creating real change?
First of all, I want to say thank you for everyone who joined us this morning. In Medtronic, we try to strive for excellence, and I'm part of ADN UK and I, as I mentioned, is an ERG group. We launched in 2021, and kind of in the middle of the pandemic, saw the need to actually create an initiative to support people of minorities and people of African descent network. So we try to start by getting basically get our leaders to buy into the idea. But Medtronic is a global company, as you're well aware, so we already have a huge presence in the DEI space. So it wasn't so difficult for us when we were trying to launch, but the only difficulty was mainly because in UK and Ireland, there was no employee resource group to support people of, minority backgrounds. So we tried to launch that because every other one existed in the United States, but we were the first to launch outside of the United States. It wasn't easy. It was a bit of a struggle. And as you mentioned, I do not have any DEI title because I work in quality assurance. Well, prior to actually embarking on my journey, I had to complete some training. I urge everyone to use the Harvard Management Mentor because it's so good with a bunch of training. So I was able to go in there, completed a training in diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I also did some training in transmission, and by doing that, it helped me lead to ID&E initiative in Medtronic. The main one would be our launch of the first career fair on the animatronic premises in Galway. So we launched that last year for the first time, and it's going to be a staple event, and it's going to occur once every year on an annual basis. And also the mentorship program was also a big one for us because we launched our first ever mentorship program. And through this program, we were able to open doors for people of, all kinds of early career starters, fresh graduates, and people of diverse background, mostly minorities, we try to focus on. And this has been a great success. And people were able to gain new employment, people were able to get promotions in their departments. And like that, we have the backing of the senior leaders and directors in the company. And it was very encouraging seeing that we had that support, especially from the leadership level, because as I said, when you have a team of people with a shared ideology and passion, it's easier to execute things and, get the ball rolling. So, yeah, there's a lot of work still to be done. As you all are probably well aware, there's been a lot of cuts in the budgets for the DEI in most companies. And for us, we kind of received a bit of pushback, but through the help of our Chief Inclusion Officer, Sally Saber, she was able to reassure us and promise that, we'll keep being present and being proactive in that ID&E space. And so, yeah, I think that's really what's helped me, the training, my team, the passion behind the project and the initiative, and just showing up every day and just continuously being there and being an ear, listening to people when they want to talk to you, and just being there for like people that are struggling in their career, mostly in career, also in their personal life. And our mission statement is to recruit and to engage and to develop our talents. And that's really what we've been doing since. And we're looking forward to more projects in the future.
Thanks, Mitchell. I think you mentioned that it was the first network outside the US, is that right?
Yes,
And does
sir,
that
yeah.
open the door for maybe others in other areas, do you think, or?
Absolutely, yeah. So we were the first to launch outside of the US, but since then there's been more hub launches. So we have one in South Africa. It's the first African design network in Africa, so that's kind of cool. And I believe we have also one in the Nordics, so like Sweden, Norway, and that part of the world. So yeah, so we're expanding, and we keep like pushing and trying to make our voices heard. And through collaborations, meaningful collaborations with like the Irish Center for Diversity and participation in like the National Diversity Awards, that is also like basically shone the light on what we're doing, within Ireland. And also we also collaborated with African Professional Network of Ireland, APNI, and we're very, very active in their career day events, and we show up and we make our presence felt. And like I said, there's a lot of work to be done in this space, but we're well able for it.
Thank you very much, Mitchell. Yeah, that's a great example of real change. So well done on that. That's fabulous. So our third finalist today was Mariangela Esposito from the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. Unfortunately, Mariangela can't make it this morning, but I'll read the judges' comments that were provided to us. So the judges observed that colleagues aptly described your leadership as quiet but powerful. So just want to say well done to Mariangela and the team at the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. Well done your work, and yeah, keep up the good work. Then on to our next finalist, who was James Kilmartin from SAP. Again, unfortunately, James also can't make it this morning, but once again, I'll read the judges' comments out. You've been involved in advancing inclusion at SAP for many years, starting locally and now globally, a consistency praised by the judges. So again, well done to the team, James and the team at SAP. And our penultimate finalist was Trevor O'Cluckerty from TG Cahir. Again, unfortunately, Trevor was not able to make it this morning either. So again, I'll read out the judges' comments and just like to acknowledge their achievement as finalists. So one of the most powerful outcomes of their work, the judges commented, is that people now feel safe to come forward and ask for support. So once again, just like to say well done to Trevor and the team at TG Cahir, and well done for your work in that area. So now on to our finalist today, who's the winner of the category that we sponsored this year, Sarah Sartori from the Southeast Technological University, or SETU. Huge congratulations, Sarah. Thanks for coming along today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to do a quick introduction to yourself before we move to the questions?
I will. Yeah, so my name is Sarah Sartori, and I'm the Higher Education Strategic Project Lead, is my mouthful of a title in SETU. And that essentially means I champion pathways from further education and training into higher education for students for whom maybe the pathway into higher education is not straightforward. I also chair our Sanctuary Working Group in SETU, which is a scholarship program for refugees and international protection applicants. I sit on our EDI governing body, our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion governing body, and I'm also on the board of the Alternatives to Violence project, which primarily does workshops in prisons.
Sarah? So the judges said that your work shows that inclusion is often driven by compassion as much as strategy. So how do you lead with that sense of humanity while working within complex systems and institutions?
Yeah, I think maybe that statement came about because of work that we were involved in recently with students from Gaza. So I am chairing our Sanctuary Working Group, and we would typically, our scholarships would be given to students who are already living in Ireland. So they might be living within the direct provision system or the asylum system. And there's a number of barriers then to accessing education, as you can imagine, like fees and transport. And so these scholarships are to try to help people, access education, but they're based in Ireland. So we would never before have offered scholarships to students coming directly from a conflict zone. And we were obviously used to supporting Ukrainian students. And I suppose after when October the 7th happened, and staff primarily were gathering for Palestine, and everybody, I suppose, was feeling helpless around what we could do. And I was fortunately in a position through different networks to hear about an organization called the Gazan Scholarship Initiative. And this was a collective of academics and just regular people all around the world, really, who had a sort of a database, a portfolio of students from Gaza that they'd been working with who had all lost their universities. And they sent a list of students, and I was able to get support within the university and within the working group to start pairing certain students with different departments, and then working with colleagues in the Department of Foreign Affairs to support the evacuation of, so we were able to take 6 students from Gaza, and they're here studying on various programs now. That was over 2024, 2025. And I suppose what was really invigorating about that was the time when everybody was feeling very helpless, and we were all sort of being bombarded by this awful news, and it felt like every time you turned on the radio or the television, you were just hearing the worst of humanity, and how awful everything is. And yet my experience with working with colleagues in SETU and more broadly within the university community, because all the other universities came together and there was a large evacuation last year. I think there's now 12 universities taking students, was that I was seeing the best of humanity. I was seeing absolute generosity and people opening their hearts and their homes, and fundraising to be able to support these students. And just to give you one example, we had one student who we were hoping he was going to arrive. The evacuation window closed just a week before he was due to evacuate. So it was another 9 months, I think, before the Department of Foreign Affairs were able to evacuate him, and he was arriving at the end of the semester, which is typically when our students would be, in party mode. And I was thinking, oh my God, how are we going to, we put him into student accommodation when, he's come from, the experience he's had and living in a refugee camp and the trauma of being evacuated and malnourished. And one of our colleagues put him in her home for 6 weeks. So there was a sort of, I felt like we were part of this counter movement, and it was, I think it felt like we weren't so powerless that we were able to do something. And I think, just to come back to your question, Mark, I think one of the things we can lose sight on, and because we get so busy, is we can lose sight on the details. And particularly, you know, if we move further up into management. I come from an academic background, so I've done a lot of research in this area. But I think it's the details. I used to circulate the photo of this kid who we were waiting for his evacuation to my colleagues and say, look, please keep him in your prayers. We're hoping that he's going to get out in a couple of weeks. And I think just sharing information and the details about, you know, because, you know, as Mitchell was saying, you know, the budgets are being cut for EDI across the board. It's and you know, people are so stretched time-wise, and I think we need those reminders all the time of the human being behind the statistics and why we're doing what we're doing, or, you know, why we're going, like what Sharon is saying with the colleagues, you know, why we go the extra mile or why we put the extra time in is because of the human beings and the stories. So it's trying to remember to share those details that get lost. I often think it's a little bit like, isn't it? You know, those, you know, if you think of eagles and they're, you know, that you're trying to see the big picture as to why you're doing something, but at the same time being able to hone in on those the small details and those that remind us of the human reasons we're doing something. And I think that's the crux of EDI. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. And what achievements would you say you've been most proud of in the last year?
Well, I suppose I've been most proud of being part of this community that's been able to support our sanctuary students and the kids from Gaza. That's been an amazing thing to be part of. I'm also very proud of a project that I had been trying for a very long time to get over the line. And when I came to Southeast Technological University, they backed me to do it. And that was a degree program that we run in Portlaoise Prison. So I've been doing research and work in prisons since 2010. And people in prison are often sort of seen as undeserving. And there's this sort of idea sometimes that the punishment should not just be the loss of liberty. And also a little bit, sometimes a bit of a stigma that it's only literacy programs that work in prison. And I knew through my work in Portlaoise Prison that there was a group of men who definitely had the capability and the capacity to take part in the degree program. And we've had 21 men taking part in a degree in community development and leadership. And it's been such a privilege to be part of that degree and to see most of the people in prison have had a negative experience of education, and to see the confidence build over time. When I first went in to pitch this program, I had a group of 12 men, and they were, how many words, and what's I've never structured an academic essay, and what's referencing. And then to go back in sort of 6 months down the line, and everybody is speaking like a university student, and they're very confident. They know what learner journals are. They know what reflective writing is. They know, and to see that growth has been inspiring, because people in prison are also, they're not there in isolation. They have families, they have children. So what I love is I'll go back in and I'll hear, oh, my partner is studying in university now, or my daughter has a place in this university. And so the ripple effect stretches far beyond the prison. It has the capacity to change the environment in a landing, which is powerful, but also that ripple effect into the community, and to see people develop their self-esteem through education. My own journey into education was not a straightforward one, and I've appreciated building my own self-esteem through education. So I absolutely love when I can see other people having that opportunity.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Sarah. That's great to hear about. And just for me again, huge congratulations on winning the category. Absolutely well deserved. So well done. Andrew, do you want to come in there?
Sure, I'll come in now as well, because as I said at the start, the Irish Centre for Diversity and also Mark Whelan and the rest of the team at Publicjobs, we don't get to hear these stories. We're not part of the judging process. So this is the first time that we're hearing all of these. So I have a huge list of questions for you all to take a bit of a deeper dive in the amazing work that you do. And I wanted to start by, before we get into that, I just wanted to say that anybody who wants to can see a snippet of Sarah's amazing acceptance speech featured in our highlights video, which has just been released. And Mitchell is also featured in the highlights video, doing his star turn, throwing some shapes as part of the entertainment on the night. So if anybody wants to see our highlights video, it's been shared on LinkedIn at the moment, and it will shortly be posted onto the Irish Centre for Diversity website. So go and check those out. Right, onto the serious, back to the serious bit now. I wanted to start by saying that, yes, as Mitchell has raised, that there's lots of headlines about EDI budgets and D&I budgets being cut and business priorities moving because of what's happening elsewhere, usually in the States. So, but what the stories that everyone shared today has proven is that work is still being done, and the commitment is still there, and it's stronger than ever. So thank you to all of you, and to everybody that works in the D&I space for that ongoing commitment and making sure that progress that we've won so hard in previous years isn't lost and is building. So thank you for that. Wanted to raise that. Okay, so, and another thing I wanted to say and congratulate you all again for is the amazing confidence that you all have of taking the first steps to bring the EDI, D&I conversation into your workplaces, because so often that's the hardest part. You know, it's very easy to do nothing. That's kind of most default position. Just think, oh, it's too big for me to take on. But you've all shown that bravery, I suppose, of just grabbing the bull by the horns and saying, no, this is something I feel strongly about, and I'm going to make a difference. So thank you hugely for all of that. Okay, on to my questions now. Now, Mark, I'm going to start with you. These are in no particular order. Mark, Dara mentioned that diversity is in Publicjobs, is part of the mission. How is this measured? Do you have measurement metrics in place to hold you accountable, not hold you personally, but hold the organization accountable for its performance?
Yeah, so Dara would have mentioned our ED&I strategy. So we do have an ED&I strategy which is in place at the moment, which has, I guess, 3 key pillars. And to keep it short, there's kind of 3 areas. There's one is having better data on who is and isn't applying through us, and who is and isn't being successful through our processes. The second area is better processes. So that might be looking at things like how we put in place reasonable accommodations, or the recruitment process themselves, or things like that. And the third area is that leading by example. Because we're the centralized recruiter for the civil and public service, we have a kind of key role in making sure we do things right and kind of guide our clients to do likewise. So we do an awful lot of outreach and attend an awful lot of events and things like that as well in the ED&I team. So we have the strategy, and that's ending at the end of 2026. So we'll be looking at the next iteration of that strategy as well. But we have a corporate strategy in Publicjobs, and we obviously feed into that and sit under that. So we make sure we're kind of front and center of the overall strategy of the organization. But in terms of measurements, so like there's lots of different ways we do it. Obviously, the inclusive roots programs that we run. So we make sure we're trying to expand and develop them every year and monitor how that's going, and that we're getting more interest from departments and more candidates into the mix. But we also report in lots of national strategies. So the government would have strategies in various different spaces, and we would have responsibilities under them. So we have to report in on them as well, and that's another way we do it. Yeah, so that's kind of how we do it. We kind of make sure we deliver on the strategy and we report on the aspects of the strategy, and that we're actually doing what we said we were going to do.
Right, so that strategy is kind of what holds you accountable. So that has to be robust in the first place. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and my other question, to not let you off the hot seat for a bit, is the recruitment advertising. So inclusive recruitment. I mean, we have training courses about it. I just wanted to see, with the role of your organization, what strategies do you employ to ensure that your roles are advertised to reach a wider possible audience?
Yeah, so I guess that's, well, obviously we have our ED&I unit who work in this space, but we also have a marketing team who are very good at this sort of thing and making sure our message gets out there and the jobs are advertised as widely as possible. But I think the key thing there is kind of stakeholder building and relationship development with partner organizations. Because like lots of our jobs are open for absolutely everyone to apply for, but lots of people don't know that or don't realize that, or might have a misconception that they can't apply for this or that. So it's about getting the message out there that the jobs are there and they're for you, and the amount of things we recruit for is really broad. So we kind of say, no matter what your interest is, you can probably find something that will be of interest to you in the civil or public service. So yeah, we try and utilize those relationships to make sure we're reaching people that we might not be getting directly, and they're helping us get the message out as well. And I think that's a kind of key part of it too.
Brilliant, thank you. That's one thing I've noticed in doing this series of webinars, is that collaboration and interfacing with expert groups is a big part of the whole D&I world, and it's great to see that that's coming through. And Mark, you mentioned dealing with special interest groups, and I suppose that ties back into a point that Mitchell raised about the APNI, African Professional Network of Ireland. So, you know, there are groups like that, and there are groups like the Irish Traveller Movement who will fulfill that kind of, who will do that outreach for you, so, or will help with that outreach. So it's great that your marketing team are fully harnessing all of those. Right, my next victim, if you like, is Sharon. I'm going to come to you now, because amazing story. Wow. And so my questions are, where did your menopause counselling training come from? Which body provided that for you?
That was the Centre of Excellence, and it was a 150-hour course that I did in my own time, covering different elements of menopause wellness, perimenopause, HRT, all different aspects of that. So I did that through Centre of Excellence.
Great, good to get them a shout out. So thank you for that. Right, my next question for you is, it sounds like you've done a huge amount of work in getting your leadership on board with the whole menopause space and things like that. I wondered, have you had any success in building it into standard work policies and procedures, so that, you know, to bring others on board with you and make sure that the kind of policies stay, rather than going when you move on or when your time finishes?
No, absolutely. I think my ethos isn't writing policies. It isn't about putting posters in toilet doors for awareness. Mine is around building communities. So we have communities rather than policies within Bidfest Noonan. And the 12-month programme for Together Through Menopause has been written, and it's delivered by myself and a colleague, but it's all written and can be easily passed on to somebody else to deliver as well as the Mankind Matters one. So we're into month 8 now of Mankind Matters. So again, I just go off and research. We recently did a session on prostate cancer and testicular cancer, and talked about how, you know, men should be checking themselves, and it's quite a difficult community to build when I'm a member of that, when it's a male dominated community. But I think I always lead through kindness. I think if you cut me in half, it would say kindness throughout me. I'm about making sure that people feel they can be their true selves at work. So rather than it being a policy or a procedure or a process. It's about building that community where people feel they belong. We've also just starting to bring in a new LMS system. So we'll have a new learning management system within Bidvest Union, which will then give us the focus to be able to reach all of our colleagues on the front lines with webinars, podcasts, information. And we're a 27,000 colleague business. So to reach the front line as well is the most important thing for me. It's okay when we do our internal communications and our community building, but to reach the front line and these people who are cleaning trains, who are cleaning universities, they're the people that need this the most. So that is our next step to reach those people on the front line.
Brilliant. And I love that I love your correction of me of, talking about policies and procedures, but really the thing, you're right, is culture. Is changing culture, transforming culture, and building things into culture so that people can share, can have conversations, can be open to the D&I, D&I intercourse and sharing different
Absolutely.
perspectives. So well done for that.
Thank you.
Sarah, sorry, Mitchell, is my next question. You pioneered ERG's employee resource groups at Medtronic in the UK and Ireland and beyond. How have you been backed on that? Because you mentioned you had challenges in the beginning, but I believe that Medtronic now is fully on board with all the messages you've been putting out, all of your training, and how it seems like your pioneering work has really snowballed and has really gained traction and is now embedded into Medtronic's culture. Do you have any advice for others on how to take that first step? How do you knock on that first door and say, hey, I think, we should be doing this, or yeah, over to you. Oh, and you're on mute. Somebody had to do it.
Sorry about that, guys. Thank you so much. So again, it wasn't easy at the start, but like yourself, nothing good comes easy. So I guess it all starts with that first conversation and just being open and honest and just speak from the heart. Like I said, in Medtronic, we already have like a strong DEI like space, and we have a diversity chief in charge. So when it was time to launch that conversation or get it started, it wasn't as difficult. We just had to like set up meetings with the right leaders in the establishments. And because the hub is basically the UK and Ireland, so two different countries coming together, we needed to like partner with leaders from both regions. So like in Ireland, we had executive sponsors in the manufacturing plants. And then in England, we have executive sponsors from the commercial side of things. And when we do these meetings, we try to like come together, and we have virtual meetings together. And just like Andrew mentioned, Mark mentioned earlier on, we also have like objectives in the start of every fiscal year. And we have like a plan we present to our executive sponsors, and they hear us out. And if they have any pushbacks, they like speak out, and we take it on board, and we go back, make some changes, and come back and just re-strategize. So I guess it all boils down to being honest and open. It's not the easiest to find space in the calendar for the leaders, because their calendar is just packed with meetings. So, but just be resilient and just keep trying to like find that make that conversation happen, because it all starts with a conversation. And once that kicks off, everyone would just be honest and just say, express how they feel and express their any challenges that could be, that could be anticipated, or any kind of pushbacks. And then we could also give our reasons why we think that this will work. So for example, the career day in the Medtronic premises, we never thought that would be able to fly, because we participate in career days by collaborating with like NUIG in Galway, or in Dublin. We collaborate with like Trinity College, but this was the first time we thought, how about we do it in our own plants in Galway and have people come to us. So that involved a lot of finding the space that will be conducive for everyone. You know, even things as little as making sure everyone has adequate parking spaces, and you know, just things like make sure we have all the right people coming in to engage and speak to the attendees. And yeah, so it all starts with a conversation.
So it all starts with the conversation. Yeah, resilience. Thank you for that. Yeah, so that's great advice for anyone out there that's wondering how do they make that first step. You may get a pushback to start with, but persevere, persevere, persevere. Thanks, Mitchell. Sarah, you could probably guess that I'm coming to you next with the question. I was blown away by everything you said. So it sounds like the leadership at SETU are very accessible and supportive, and it's great to have that whole structure there and that network. But I was thinking, my God, who do you call first? You know, if you take something like the Garzon Scholarship Initiative, how do you go from hearing something on the news or getting something through social media or just having that gut kind of, oh my God, I want to do something? Who is first? Who do you call first? I mean, my God.
I think it's back to what Mitchell just said there. It all starts with a conversation. I don't really I'm probably a bit reactive. I don't really think so much in strategy. I would have a conversation and I would be inspired by what somebody else is doing. So I had a conversation with colleagues in Trinity and they were saying they were talking to these people in the Garzon Scholarship Initiative. I said, oh my goodness, this sounds fantastic. How do I talk to them? You know, and then when I talk to them, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you must come and talk to our working group. And then you've got a group of people who are then also galvanized. And then, okay, so I'm lucky in my line management. I report directly to our Chief of Operations in SETU, Dave Deneve, who's very accessible and very amenable. So I think it does require accessible leadership. And I think that's maybe a little bit frightening in our organizations. They are getting we're seeing it in higher education. They're becoming more corporate and people are becoming less accessible. And at the moment we are in a technological university, which it still has an agility, and the systems can become so big, they can become quite rigid. We have 18,000 students, for example, 1,800 staff. But because we've only recently become a university since 2023, and there's a merger, I think we're still in this place that we have an agility to be able to respond. And if you look at the Garzon piece, that's what that needed was a response. But also, and I think I spoke about this at the award ceremony. It's the sphere of influence. And I'm struck by that by listening to Sharon and to Mitchell as well. It's really using our sphere of influence as best we can to be able to leverage support and get things done, you know. I'm always good at figuring out how to do something. You know, if I can't do it myself, I'll figure out who do I need to talk to get it done. I mean, I've never done visa processes or things like that for people, but you figure it out in a crisis. But I think it's also then that piece around community is wonderful, because there's so many things that I'm not good at and I can't do, and other colleagues were able to step in and do those things.
That's brilliant, thank you. And then that touches on the whole, you can't do it, we can't do everything ourselves. So really build that community around you, build your army, which is something that sounds like you've all done. So thank you very much for that. Now, listen, we're up to 5 minutes to go. Rather than take up lots of everyone's time, I think we'll call it there. So I'm going to finish with thank yous. I won't need to wrap up because I think the amazing work that you do speaks for itself. So there's nothing more that I could add to it. So I'm just going to go straight into the thank yous. I'm going to start with a thank you to Mark and the team at Publicjobs for sponsoring the whole category and sponsoring the awards. Thank you to our finalists, and thank you to Sarah, our winner, for sharing all of you for sharing your amazing stories. Thanks to Kira behind the scenes for keeping everything running smoothly. Thank you to the audience for joining us today and for still making that commitment and being interested in driving diversity and inclusion forward. The recording will be available shortly on the Irish Centre for Diversity website, as I said, and that's also where you can go to review other recordings in the whole webinar series. And that's it. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.